Hello and welcome to day number 15 of 30 Days of Yoga. In this challenge, we are setting a new intention and transforming into a new version of ourselves. In today's class, we are doing a yin yoga practice for the hamstrings and the low back to let go of control. So we are in phase 2, the second round of the 10 days, and that is all about surrender. So we'll be doing that here in these poses. Don't forget the journal prompt in the description below to do after you finish this flow today. And if you like this practice, I also offer one-on-one private sessions as well as corporate wellness programs. And you can find that on my website, margaretflock.com. And if you'd like a free target area reference chart that details all kinds of poses related to specific areas of the body, so you can target the practice that works for you, you can get that for free when you sign up for my newsletter. And that link is in the description as well. Let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to start out right away in caterpillar pose. I will mention that you may want to grab a block or a bolster for today's practice, since we will be doing restorative or supported bridge pose. So if you don't have that, you can also use a book or anything that is in kind of this shape of a block. And if you don't have a block, there's another restorative variation that I will let you know about. So let's start in caterpillar pose. Legs out long. Go ahead and untuck the cushions out from under you. And just allow the body to completely relax. Dropping the head and neck. You're going to feel this in the spine. So sometimes people like to reach for the feet. In this pose, don't do that. This is more about the back rounding more than anything else. We are targeting that spine. You may feel a bonus stretch in the hamstrings. That's really just a bonus. It's more about the spine more than anything else. Just allowing everything to relax with the force of gravity. We're going to be here for 3 minutes. So if you've been along for this challenge, you may have done the other yin yoga practices, but I'll just go over the key points for any newcomers here today. There are 3 things to keep in mind with yin. The first is that we are targeting a specific area of the body. In this pose, it's the spine. So if you're not feeling that stretch, feel free to take a different variation or another pose entirely that targets that area. This is more important that we find that area of the stretch rather than finding a perfect shape. So the traditional alignment rules from vinyasa do not apply here. As long as you feel safe and as long as you feel that stretch, you are doing it right. Second thing to keep in mind, of course, is safety. If ever you feel unsafe in any pose, back out slowly, carefully, and then find another pose or another variation that feels better for your body. We also want to avoid pulling or tugging yourself down. We are gently stretching the body over a long period of time. So though these poses will be deep, these stretches will be deep, it is more about allowing the body to naturally unfold rather than pulling or forcing, and that will protect the body from any injuries. The third thing to keep in mind is time. So, as I mentioned, we are holding these poses for 3 full minutes. So if you cannot sustain for the full 3 minutes, go ahead and start slow, back out a little bit, and find something that you can sustain for that duration. I always recommend starting at about 60 to 70% of the full stretch, and then just allow the body to naturally unfold over time. Next, inhale, press yourself back up. Go ahead and bend the knees, bring the soles of the feet together. We'll come into butterfly pose next. And same thing here, just go ahead and drop the head and neck down. You're going to feel this as well in the spine. You might feel this in the hips as well, potentially the hamstrings. The farther you have your feet out, the more you're going to feel it in the hamstrings. So you may want to just slide those feet forward. Again, we'll be here for 3 full minutes. So just find something you feel comfortable in to sustain. In the yin practice, we are not trying to get super duper comfortable. That might come as a side effect, but we are still exercising here, believe it or not. We're still exercising. We're just exercising the joints and connective tissues rather than the muscles. So it's a different form of exercise. It's really important to exercise these connective tissues because when we strengthen these tissues and joints, we're actually creating a strong foundation for some other practices in our exercise routine, like muscle exercise. And this helps us prevent injury so that we can have a more sustainable routine. This also is very helpful as we age. These practices might help us be less reliant on walkers, wheelchairs, or caregivers. It keeps us young. It keeps us mobile. It keeps us flexible. Many people, especially in the traditional fitness community, may not fully understand what we're doing here or see the value. And potentially because the benefits of traditional exercise, maybe weightlifting, heavier vinyasa practices, or cardio, you're going to visually see the effects. You might see weight loss or muscle build. In the yin practice, you're not going to see those physical effects. The effects are going to be more felt and experienced. So that could be why this practice is not more publicized. It may not be as marketable. People like to see that vanity metric of being able to see the weight coming off or the muscle being built. Here, you're going to feel just more open in your body. The energy is going to flow more freely. Nutrients may be able to also flow to necessary parts of the cell, parts of the body. You're going to just really find a deepened flexibility. Next, inhale, press back up. Go ahead and straighten the legs out. And before moving, just go ahead and lie back down onto the back. Pentacle pose. You might know this as Shavasana. In the yin practice, we call it pinnacle pose. And the objective here is to just find stillness and allow the effects of those postures to integrate in our bodies. So you might feel some sensations. Just notice what you feel. When you're ready, go ahead and just shake out the knees. And you can bring the soles of the feet down onto the mat. Sway the knees from left to right. Let's go ahead and hinge up. Bring the legs up towards the ceiling, kind of like in a legs up the wall pose. Lower the heels down to hover. Swiftly pop them back up. Use that momentum to fall up to a seat. Let's come into half butterfly pose next. You might know this one as seated tree. Bring the left sole of the foot to the inside of the thigh. Lift up through the spine and go ahead and just drop the head and neck down. You'll feel a stretch in the right hamstring. And if you want, you can bring in the block if you have it. You can rest it underneath the forehead. The one thing, though, to keep in mind with the props is if you find that the prop is preventing you from finding a deeper stretch naturally over time, you may need to just readjust that prop or just let it go. Sometimes when you hear some spiritual advice of surrendering, of letting go, you might think it's easier said than done. Of course, we'd all love to completely surrender if we had that ability, but sometimes there's something that we're still clinging on to. Instead of clinging or trying to force yourself to let go, that's still an element of control because you're still forcing. Instead, just notice where you're still clinging on. And then let go of the fact that you're still holding on. Sounds like a catch-22, but if you can just accept where you are in your mind, then it becomes easier to let go over time. Next, inhale, press back up. And go ahead and extend the left leg out long. Bring the right sole of the foot to the inside of the left thigh. Gaze towards the left toes and go ahead and relax down here. Drop the head and neck, feeling the stretch in the left hamstring. The yin practice is very effective at helping us to let go. The reason for this is with these deep stretches, we're not forcing anything. We're allowing the body to surrender into the stretch over time. So it takes time. There's no repetition. There's no trying to force or push. With time, with that patience that we're giving our body will naturally unfold as it needs. Just like the body knows how to naturally unfold, your mind also knows how to naturally unfold. So you can take a yin-like approach to the things in your life you'd like to let go of. And these stretches, they can be intense. They might feel uncomfortable even at times. But hello, my dog is here, Chloe. Hello, baby. So these stretches can be uncomfortable, but we take time in the yin practice to dive into that uncomfortability so that we can understand where we're still holding on. And just by noticing the places where we're holding on, we notice what we need to do to let go. So it's a slow process. And don't be too upset if it takes time. Maybe it doesn't take any time for you. And if that's where you are, then that's awesome. But if it does take time, just allow it to take time. Next inhale, go ahead and press yourself back up. Let's find pinnacle pose one more time. Finding stillness before we move around. We have to integrate that pose. So just rest down on the back. Notice any sensations that are popping up for you. Feel into them. And go ahead and shake out the knees. And you can bring those feet, soles of the feet down, drop the knees from right to left. Make any movements that feel good here to break that tension up, maybe drawing the knees into the chest, making circles in one direction, the other. Let's go ahead and hinge up, feet towards the ceiling. Lower the heels down to hover, swiftly pop them up. Use that momentum to roll up. Our next pose is going to be Sphinx pose. So go ahead and come onto the belly. Drop the hips down, forearms in front of you, shoulders stacked over elbows. Press the pelvis down into the mat and slide the heart through. So this pose will target the low back. If you're feeling it more in the upper back, go ahead and straighten the arms all the way for seal pose. And the more you walk the hands in towards the body, the more you're going to feel that. You may even want to point the fingertips out towards the side. Wherever you are, totally fine. We may be taking different variations here. I'm going to go ahead and take seal, since this is better for my low back. In Sphinx, I tend to feel it more in the upper back. So just find whatever is targeting that area of the body. Now, there are several ways that you can do this pose. You can separate the feet. You can bring the feet together. That might change that stretch. And you can also keep gazing forward, or you can gaze up towards the ceiling, or you can gaze down for a stretch in the neck. Wherever you feel comfortable, wherever you want to take this pose. This pose is intense. We are adding compression to that low back. So it's kind of the opposite of that forward fold that we did. We're moving the spine in the opposite direction. We have almost 1 minute left here, a little over a minute left. And again, alignment rules don't apply, so if you need to lift the shoulders closer to the ears, that's okay too. We're not so worried about alignment because we're not really using too much muscle here. Maybe we are using a little bit, but definitely not in that target area that we're going for. We find alignment to protect the joints because of the use of muscles in a traditional vinyasa practice. In this practice, we're doing connective tissue, so it's completely different. There's a whole different mentality with the yin practice. On your next exhale, slowly lower all the way down. And then press back to child's pose for the rebound. And just notice what's coming up. And when you're ready, go ahead and rock forward to tabletop position. Sway the hips from right to left. Maybe take a few rounds of cat-cows if that feels good. And let's go ahead and find and lie all the way down onto our backs. And we'll take supported bridge pose here. So you might want to grab that block or whatever you might have. If you don't have the block, then there is another pose you can take, which I'll let you know about. So go ahead and come all the way down onto the back. Bring the soles of the feet down to the floor. Lift the hips. Slide that block directly underneath the tailbone. And lower the heels down. If you don't have that block, you can simply just bring the feet out towards the side of the mat and then drop the knees down for a broken bridge. That's going to be a more restorative variation. So you're not going to really feel a stretch in that pose. So you're just going to take a more restorative part of the practice there. You might also, if you want another option, you can take full saddle. So that's kind of like a reclined hero pose if you know it from the vinyasa practice. We're going to hold this pose for a little longer. We're going to hold it for 4 full minutes. Since this is our last stretch of the practice. I love supported bridge pose because really our whole bodies are relaxed here. And all the work is being done is by the block. So that block is pressing up against that tailbone, and the back is at an angle, dropping down. The low back is the part of our body that supports the rest of us. It's our root. We need to take care of it. This area of the body is where emotions that relate to our survival needs are stored. And survival needs can be the hardest thing to let go of sometimes because it directly relates to our existence on this earth. And sometimes we can do as much journaling, we can do as much emotional inner work as we want. But if it's stored somewhere in the body, if that tension, that trauma is stored in an area, we need to take time to physically release it as well. The more we surrender to these deep stretches in the yin practice, the more we'll be able to surrender in our minds. Maybe you noticed during this practice when the body was starting to unwind over time. The same process is happening with our minds if we take this same yin like approach. Notice where you're holding that tension in the mind. Where are you feeling a sense of control? You don't have to make it go away. You don't have to forcibly surrender. Surrendering comes from just noticing where that tension lies, nurturing it, sending it love. Sometimes all it wants is for you to recognize that it's there. You can talk to it, notice what it needs, have patience with it, and you might find that maybe it no longer serves you and it can release naturally on its own just by you giving the love that it was craving. And then you can focus your attention on something else, something better. The new person that we're transforming into by setting this intention for this month. When you're ready, lift the hips. And go ahead and slide the block or the bolster out. Lower the hips all the way down. Just knock the knees together. Notice any sensations that come up. Maybe you feel pressure in the low back. For me, my whole lower pelvis area is feeling a lot of blood flow, a lot of energy. Go ahead and draw the knees into the chest. Rock from side to side. Or you can extend one knee and the other. Maybe take a few rocks up and down the length of the spine. Just whatever feels good here. And we'll go ahead and hinge up, send the legs up towards the ceiling, lower the heels to hover, pop them back up, come up to a seat. Now if you want to take that final resting pose, You totally can. But in the yin practice, that's not always necessary. Since we've taken pinnacle pose to integrate those stretches, that work has been done. But if you want that final meditation, please don't hesitate to do so. Go ahead and bring the hands to heart center. Let's take 3 cleansing breaths to seal our practice. Deep breath in through the nose. Sigh it out. Inhale through the nose. Let it go. One more big breath in. Sigh it out. Thank you for practicing with me today. Namaste. Don't forget to check the description for your journal prompt. And if you want that reference chart for the target areas, that's also in the description as well. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.